hell is a bar of soap doing in this car? Hey guys, James from SIKKY Manufacturing. I'm excited to introduce our latest domestic build. We're going to be taking this iconic, classic 1972 Chevy Nova, commonly referred to as the X-body chassis, and we're going to be updating it by installing a L99 and a new 6L80 automatic transmission in here, getting rid of the original motor and the carbureted setup. Just going to increase the reliability and turn this thing into a modern day muscle car, so check it out. So we're going to start this build series by doing a walk around on this car as it came into us before we did any of our modifications. So we're going to test drive it, give you some feedback on the suspension, the handling, the power that it's currently got, and then we're going to dive into what we're going to do and replace, as well as some planning and some design work. So we're going to develop a motor mount kit for this X-body platform, which covers your 1968 to 74 Chevy Novas, Omegas, and basically an iconic classic muscle car at this point. Starting to see a lot of these out there these days, and this one's a pretty good specimen. Nice paint job, nice wheels, tires, interior's in great shape. So we're not going to do much with that stuff, but we'll probably address the rear end on this thing since it's not a posi rear at the moment. So we want to get a good solid rear under the car. Then we're going to obviously do an engine and transmission upgrade, get rid of the factory stuff, the carbureted, and we even got some other updates to modernize this vehicle a little bit, like HVAC. So we want to get a good solid working air conditioning and heat system in this car. So looking forward to getting started. So I'd say first step is let's take this puppy for a ride and see what it's all about. You guys might be asking yourself the same thing I just asked. What the hell is a bar of soap doing in this car? But at the same time, when I got in this car, I was like, man, it smells fresh, like I just got out of the shower. Lo and behold, Irish Spring in the back seat. Pretty ingenious, actually. I've never, all these years working on cars, never once thought of it. So hats off to the owner for the probably never-ending air freshener he's got in the back of this car, and it smells awesome. All right, go ahead and start it. Alright guys, moment of truth. We're going to take this thing for a test drive and give you some feedback on what we think. It's basically in the stock form, or the form the customer brought it to us in. So it does have some mods and some upgrades and some things done to it over the years, but one of the big pain points for this guy and why he brought it to us is just the unreliability of it. It had all kinds of issues, the fuel system, oil leaks, HVAC system not working, basically just a lot of the modern amenities that everybody wants in their car was missing or not working on this car. So we're going to take this look and feel of this car and leave that alone and make it drive and handle and sound and just be all out reliable, way better than it is right now. So let's take it for a drive and see what we think. So first impressions, you know, it's got a nice lope to it. It sounds good, you know, no complaints there. You know, a couple minor things, the gear selector's off by a decent amount, so you gotta hunt for the gears a little bit to figure out where you're going. But yeah, like I said, good sound. The exhaust is decent. It'll probably sound really good with the L99, which is basically the automatic version of the LS3 that we have planned on putting in here. We'll probably end up not keeping the L99 stock, do like a DOD delete and upgrade a cam, maybe like a stage 1 cam, something that's got some lope to it but has good drivability. At the end of the day, this customer wants to drive this thing on the street, run to some cars and coffees or some hangouts, events and stuff like that, and be able to get in it, fire it up, and know it's going to start every time and drive good when he's on the way to and from. All right, let's get on a little bit and see what it'll do. Oh yeah. Tranny shifts like a freight train. Actually, I don't even know if a freight train shift, but either way, it felt like we got hit in the ass when it shifted, so she's a little bouncy for sure. We're not going to be doing a whole lot to the suspension on this car because it's in pretty good shape, and honestly, we have to work with customers' budgets, and in this case, we wanted to invest most most of the budget into the engine, the transmission, the drivetrain side of it, get all that up to date, and then in the future we'll likely do some suspension upgrades and kind of improve some of that. We are probably going to do a rear end upgrade though, just because right now this is an open rear, so it basically spin one wheel when we floor it. That's never fun, so we'll probably put a posi rear in it, upgrade the rear itself, you know, some stronger components, and then leave most of the suspension alone unless we see something that just needs to be fixed from a safety standpoint, or it's just like really worn out. But again, we're trying to work with the budget, and these kind of builds, it's always difficult to get everything you want unless the car's in pristine condition already. So this car's a looker. It looks great, you know, it's got a decent paint job. Interior's like what I would say pretty good. I mean, it's not too many flaws I can pick out. I mean, granted, I'm no, you know, Barrett Jackson auctioneer, but I'd say that you know, from a looks and feel of it, everything looks great. I wouldn't really change much of it with my Nova. So again, this is a 72 Nova. Most of the stuff's been original. There were some upgrades like carburetors, and I believe it had a cam put in it, some other things over the years. The customer has done his own mods here and there, and had a couple other places working on it. And again, that's kind of one of the issues. The last couple places that have had this car have done a less than stellar job working on it. So the old too many cooks in the kitchen scenario 100% applies here, just because we're going behind a whole bunch of other people's work that wasn't necessarily top notch. Got plenty of room for improvement on the drivetrain, so I think we're definitely going to be able to achieve that and make this thing a much better performer. The other cool thing about this build too is, you know, much like our 69 GTO we're working on, we're going to develop a mount kit and headers and all the components to get this LS motor into this car the way we do things here at SIKKY, which is, you know, a lot more technical with a lot more focus on precise fitment and quality. So we want to make sure that, you know, when we make a mount kit for this X chassis, which is 68 to 74, we want it to fit those cars perfect every time, and not have a customer in a situation where they're pulling their hair out and saying, man, I bought these headers and now I got to cut them up and re-weld them, which, you know, that's just not how we roll at SIKKY. So this mount kit, the headers, everything that we design is going to be meant to fit, make it easy for the backyard installer. And also when we do these installs in-house here, you know, we have a system in place that is just real high-end, high quality, good fitment. And the number one thing these days, which is tough to find, is made in the USA, which all things SIKKY, you know, made right here in Baltimore, Maryland. So let's get on it one more time to see what it'll do. Not impressed. I would say, let's see if we can try to get the wheels to at least squeal a little bit here, light up the one-wheel wonder. Oh yeah, we got one. Alright, it took about 15 seconds to get to 50 miles an hour. So the funny thing is, with the factory specs on this car, it's really nothing impressive from the factory. Back in 1972 when it came out, had 130 horsepower, 230 foot-pounds of torque, a 0 to 60 in 11.4 seconds, and a whopping 18.4 second quarter mile. So really leaves us plenty of room to make some improvements on this thing, and I'm looking forward to the before and after and just the performance side of it. So we should be able to make quite a big difference and improvements in just all aspects of how this thing gets down the road. So it's going to be awesome to see when we're done. Well, that was fun. As you guys can see, we got the Nova up on the lift, so first order of business, we're gonna get this stock engine transmission yanked out of here and just get the engine bay all cleaned and ready. We're actually gonna start scanning it in first. So the good news on this particular car is we're not gonna have to do much with the front end suspension or brakes. So they've already been upgraded, decent calipers and rotors. Wheels and tires look good on this thing. Not giant, but meaty enough where they're gonna probably do fine for now. Front suspension's been upgraded with some coilovers. It's got a sway bar end links and bushings. Looks like a factory sway bar still, but either way, the front end on this car definitely felt solid, like it didn't need a lot of work. So I think the biggest area suspension wise is going to be the back end and brakes, because it's still got the drum brakes. So we're going to probably address the rear end since it's an open diff and we don't want to be spinning one tire. So we'll probably do a rear upgrade and convert to rotors in the back, and maybe some of it's got the stock leaf springs. It actually has a little airbag rear shock, so we might end up replacing some of these bushings while we're at it, just to kind of freshen them up, since they look pretty original and really look like decent amount of cracking. So it's kind of rule of thumb, while you're in there in the budget, you might as well do it. It just saves you a bunch of labor down the road, and it'd be kind of foolish to not upgrade those bushings, at least if we're going to keep running these factory leaf springs. So but yeah, we'll tear this rear out of here too, and in a later step, and work on that. But for now, the focus is going to be the drivetrain and just getting all the information we need in CAD so we can design what we got to build. Here you can see the upgraded coilover suspension, backside of these Willwood calipers and rotors. Like I said, suspension on the front end isn't terrible. Might need some maintenance type stuff, like some bushings and ball joints possibly, but we're not really going to get into too much upgrading up front here, since it should be good for what we're trying to do. All right, so as you can see, stock rear, open differential. Not really going to do what we want to do as far as getting this power to the ground, so it's definitely something we're going to try to address. Again, we're working with the customer's budget here, so there's only so much we can do. The primary focus is going to be drivetrain, making sure that's up to par. The exhaust doesn't look terrible either. I'd love to put completely new exhaust in this car, but at the end of the day, we're working with a certain amount of money on this build, so it's not bad. It'll work, it'll flow good enough. So we might end up leaving that alone and just tying the existing exhaust into the headers that we're going to be designing. But as you can see, the bushings on this thing are pretty toasted. I mean, there's a lot of splits and cracks in them, and I mean, they pretty much, as far as I can tell, these could be original bushings. So, 1972, the time and dry rot hasn't done many favors for these things. So probably upgrade them when we drop these out. I think we're going to keep the stock leaf springs and maybe do something with these shocks, but definitely, hopefully we'll get rid of these drum brakes too and upgrade that while we're at it. But should be it for the back end. We shouldn't have to do much else to it, and stuff like fuel tank and all that will probably stay the same. Everything looks like it's in decent shape, but that should cover it for the back end. There you can see the stock trans bracket, and you can see here the H pipe that was on this thing to start. So we could probably tie this into the headers we're going to be making with some down pipes, but looks like these are 1.75 inches. Fine for this motor, but probably a little undersized for the power we're going to be making. All right, so we're going to shoot a quick time lapse of pulling the motor and the transmission in this thing, and get that engine bay ready to start doing some scanning so we can build this 3D image of the engine compartment, so we can lay out the transmission mounts, the headers, the engine mounts, get everything placed perfectly. All right guys, awesome stuff's happening here on the Nova. So right now we're scanning in the engine compartment, and basically we already got the lower end of the tunnel, trans tunnel done. So now we got the subframe, we're getting the steering box, and even the big AC evaporator set up to try to get that into our initial design. It looks like we're probably going to end up going to an aftermarket replacement version that puts it all under the dash. But as you can see, the laser is bouncing off of these parts in here and creating a mesh of like millions of data points. And you can look on the screen, it's literally building the parts. So that's the steering box you can see taking shape. So what this does, allows us to incorporate all this into our header design. The steering box is definitely more on the header design because it's typically right in the way of some of the primaries coming out on the back cylinders on the driver's side. So this scan will allow us to create a 3D model of this car, this whole front end, engine compartment, and all these components in CAD. So once we take our LS3 model and drop it in here, we can design the motor mounts, the headers, oil pan, any other components that we need to fit perfectly around all these parts. Not exactly an easy and quick process, but it's kind of like doing our homework. Once we get this done and it's all drawn up and converted into a CAD drawing, it's going to make our job much easier. But the biggest benefit is the perfection and the precise fitment that we're going to get out of this. So one thing you can't really duplicate by the old school method of hand welding stuff up. We can literally position this motor to the same level of quality as the OE manufacturer did when they originally designed this car, if not even better than that. So it's going to allow us to make sure that this drivetrain is positioned absolutely perfect every single time. The other crazy thing about this thing is this scanning arm's got a 9-foot wingspan, and it can maintain accuracy of plus or minus 0.005 of an inch over that 9-foot span, which is pretty ridiculous if you think about it. And the level of detail and everything this thing picks up is much more than we need for the design aspect. But you got like a wire loom, it'll pick up the ridges in the plastic wire loom and any kind of texture. When we move it into CAD to just make sure the file size isn't absolutely massive, we kind of dumb the file down a little bit to the point where we turn into a mesh and get rid of a lot of the data points and get the highs and lows and kind of average it, because really we're just trying to get clearance for all this stuff that we're going to be designing to go in here, not necessarily to the point where we need super high definition detail. But it is pretty amazing technology to think that this thing can create a perfect CAD image of what we're scanning without with a crazy amount of detail. So pretty neat stuff, and definitely technology that makes SIKKY products far superior to most of our competition. Alright guys, as you can see, we got the Nova off the lift, so we got all that scan data we're going to need to design. So next episode we're going to dive into working on the actual design of the motor mounts, the headers, and start getting some prototypes either drawn up, 3D printed, even built and manufactured. So hopefully next episode we might even get into some test fitting, but it's going to be awesome. So we're ready to keep moving this project along. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for watching.